As you can see, it's locked up. There's a mechanical grange and it's quite stiff now. I've bought some small motors that should be replacements for these ones. They're 6x15 coreless DC motors. The only difference with these ones is they don't have little solder tags on the back, they've got leads on, but I can cut them very short and tin the ends to make little tags to connect up with the rigid wiring inside there. I've checked these. This is a counterclockwise rotating prop on this side, so to get this to rotate counterclockwise, if I put positive on the white lead and negative on the black lead, it will rotate counterclockwise. They normally come as sets of 4 of these for quadcopters. There's a pair with black and white leads and a pair with red and blue leads. The red and blue lead ones are normally the clockwise motors and the black and white are the anti-clockwise, but the only difference between them is the way the plugs are wired up. The wires are swapped over relative to the plug. Because when I tested them, they work the same way. You can reverse the direction by just changing the polarity of the leads. So these seem to have the same 7mm shafts, sorry, 0.7mm shafts for the propellers. Try not to mix the propellers up either, because they rotate opposite directions, and if you fit them on the wrong side, they'll blow rather than suck. So to get the motor out, there are 4 screws, very small screws in the back that come out, and the cover plate comes off and you can see the wiring. The wiring comes in and then folds back to give them enough room to slide the motors in. The motors are mostly a friction fit, though I think they may have a dab of RTV on them just to make sure they were secure. To get them out, it was a case of just gently rotating a few degrees just to break any seal on it, and then waggle them out until they come out. Don't twist them all the way around or you'll destroy all the leads. Right, need to find small screwdrivers. Oh, that's not one. This was just a little kit that you use for dismantling phones. Quite handy for these very, very small screws. I should really have got a little tub to put these screws in so I don't lose them. That's it. Try not to strip the heads of the screws or the end of the screwdriver. It's more likely to come off the end of the screwdriver. Really cheap screwdriver, this. That's the cover. It's the little cover, oops, the screws, try not to lose them. And that exposes the folded wiring to the 2 motors. Comes through the centre, round, loops back, and gives a little loop. Find a pair of pliers. I wouldn't recommend gripping the motors with pliers unless there's a serious fault with the motor, because you could damage the motor. So it's just a case of easing it out. So as you can see, the wire comes up the side through a little channel, along, loops back, gives you enough room to manoeuvre them. You can see there's just a trace of what looks like RTV or something on the back of the case, just to hold it in. And then the wires are just soldered onto pads on the back of the motors, whereas these ones, as I say, have wires on the back. So I'll need to trim the wires to make little solder connections. I notice this one, it's got a red enamelled lead and just a gold enamelled lead, and then it's got a red mark next to where the red lead is soldered on. So I'm assuming that the red might be the positive, but you can never tell. So I shall endeavour to find out. I do have a multimeter. Okay, I've managed to establish that the red wire is indeed the positive. I'm going to switch it on and it cycles. It shows about 3.7 volts positive on the red lead. So I need to desolder these two leads here. Yeah, that's it desoldered. Simple as that. So I just trimmed off the excess lead. Now I shall try and gently strip the end without damaging the motor or the leads. There we go. Very, very small wires and big fingers. I might need some additional viewing aids. Yes, exceedingly small. Let's take the propeller off. Two bits of wire. Seems to have tinned them okay. So the next thing to do is to solder on the red and the other wire very gently without destroying anything. Tricky, tricky, tricky. There's a motor attached. Stick a propeller gently on it. Just see if it promising. Definitely spins, that's something. The next thing to do is to feed it back in there without shorting anything out, which might be easier said than done. So I might try and put a bit of insulation or potting or something around that. When these bend over, I don't want them to short out. Still running. And the wires pushed back down into the groove. It's a case of sticking back the without losing all the screws. Ooh, nearly off the end of the bench. Take the propeller off. Propeller's about the same distance. Right, now I've got my phone with me. Open up the app, settings, switch off the Wi-Fi and whatever, power up app, and hit the fly button. Make sure Bluetooth is powered up, right. That seems to be working. I'm pleased and amazed. The original motor would sometimes run depending where it was sitting, what position it was in, and then sometimes it would mechanically lock up. I have a feeling it's one of the brushes at the back has been displaced or broken. I'm not going to pull it apart at the moment. This will be the first flight after replacing the left-hand motor. And flight. Where's the wind coming from? There we are, powered out to 0. Perfect.